Now continuing with the entropy only, we will see some other formulas of entropy. Now if it is asked to calculate the entropy of fusion, delta S fusion. Delta S fusion is S liquid minus S solid. Because in fusion it changes from solid state to liquid state. In case of fusion we can say that. In case of melting, it changes from solid state to liquid state. So delta S fusion is equal to entropy of liquid minus entropy of solid, or we can say, we can also use this formula delta H fusion by T, that also we can say. Similarly, for entropy of vaporization, delta S vaporization is equal to delta H vaporization by T. Entropy of vaporization is equal to delta H vaporization by T. Similarly, entropy, change in entropy, I am talking to you of all these things, that is entropy of what you can say crystallization, we can say that is change in enthalpy divided by T. So here the what you can say, in case of crystallization, there is a change in enthalpy when you are going to calculate. It is nothing but the change in enthalpy of transformation. Transformation means from solid state to crystalline state, we can say that. Clear? Or from liquid state to the crystalline state, we can say that. Clear? So that is called enthalpy of transformation or transition, we can say that, by divided by T. Similarly, enthalpy of entropy of sublimation is what? Entropy of sublimation means sublimation from solid state to gaseous state. So we can say entropy of the gas minus entropy of the solid, or we can say del H sublimation by T. That also can be calculated. So in this way we can calculate the entropy of sublimation, entropy of fusion, change in entropy, again I repeat, change in entropy of sublimation, change in entropy of fusion, change in entropy of transition or crystallization, alright, change in entropy of vaporization, which is del H vaporization by T, we can say, or we can say that is entropy of vapor state minus entropy in the liquid state, we can say that. That also can be done. Now next is entropy of the universe. Already I said you, entropy of the universe is nothing but total entropy, which is entropy of the system plus entropy of the surroundings. Now it is not possible to calculate the entropy of the surroundings, rather it is difficult. Now I should not use the word possible, I should use the word it is difficult. It is difficult to calculate the entropy of the surroundings. Rather, in most of the cases what we do is that we take a constant value for the entropy of the surroundings. We take a constant value. Got it? Clear? Now entropy of the universe is 0 for a reversible process. Got it? For reversible process, because for a reversible process initial and final both are the same, we can say that. So hence entropy change in entropy is nothing but 0 for a reversible process. Got it? Because what I said you, for a reversible process it's nothing but, we can say that is, it's isolated. It is, in case of reversible process, if the system is isolated, already I have said you, then it is nothing but change in entropy is 0. But if it is not isolated, then already we have calculated it. Fine. Then it will come under the ideal gas. Alright, then isothermal and so many other conditions will be added to it. Next, change in entropy of the universe is greater than 0 for an irreversible process. Again, it is an isolated process. It is greater than 0 for an irreversible process, and it is equal to 0 for an reversible process. Again, I repeat, it is an isolated process. Got it? Now, next is the entropy change is equal to 0 for reversible and greater than 0 for an irreversible process. We have already seen it. So there is no entropy change in an adiabatic process. Why? Because adiabatic means heat remains constant. So Q is equal to 0. So del S is equal to Q by T. So Q is 0 means del S is 0. So for an adiabatic process, entropy change is equal to 0, so to say. Now next is a process in which there is no change in entropy said to be isoentropic. A process in which there is no change in entropy said to be isoentropic. isoentropic, isoentropic, where there is no change in entropy. Now I will come to, I was saying you that we can measure the entropy of the surroundings, but it's quite difficult. I said that it is difficult, it's not impossible. Now how can we measure the entropy of the surroundings? Now we cannot do it in this particular, what you can say, in this particular system we cannot do. We will go for the next system. What is that? That I am going to tell you later on. Now, next is characteristics of the entropy. Whatever we learned it now, we saw that entropy is a state functions like delta U and delta H, we can say that. Now, change in entropy will be the same whether the change has been brought about reversibly or irreversibly. We can say that change in entropy will be the same. Got it? Condition is that the process should not be isolated. Got it? Yes, then it will be different. I have already said it. However, it is calculated by dividing the value of Q reversible by T. Basically, for an irreversible process, also remember it, change in entropy is nothing but we take it as Q reversible by T, because we consider that particular process as a reversible process and hence we calculate the change in entropy. Mind it, we consider it. We consider that particular process as a reversible process and hence we calculate the entropy change for an irreversible process also. We can say that. Clear? So hence that is because the heat exchange in an irreversible process will be an indefinite and uncertain. I have already said it. So hence for that particular purpose we consider it and we calculate it. Fine. The entropy of a system is not an extensive is an extensive property. Sorry, I am saying not an I said. It is an extensive property because it depends upon the mass. Next, the value of delta S is 0 for a cyclic or a reversible process. Again I repeat, isolated. It should be. Again in the cyclic process also it is 0. Why? Because S initial and S final will be the same. Alright. Because delta S for a cyclic process is what? For any process is what? Delta S is S final minus S initial. For cyclic process, from where you start, you end there itself. The final and initial both are same. We can say that. Next, total entropy of the universe remains unaltered in a reversible process but increases in an irreversible process. Already I have said it. The total entropy of the universe, so to say. Now, the value of the entropy depends on the independent variables and is used to define the state of the system. Independent variables means temperature, volume, pressure, etc. We can say that. So hence, what we come to know about the entropy from the second law of thermodynamics. It's a reversible process, the entropy of the system and the surroundings taken together remains constant, we can say that, while the net entropy of the system and the surrounding increases in an irreversible process. Definitely. In an irreversible process, the net entropy of the system and the surrounding increases, but in a reversible process, it remains constant. So, since all the process in nature, remember that, occurs spontaneously, that is, reverse, we can say that occurs spontaneously, that is irreversibly. Therefore, the entropy of the universe is increasing, got it, continuously. So, this is a statement of the second law, that entropy of the system always increases. Why? Because generally all the process in the nature, they are spontaneous and hence it is irreversible process, we can say that. Moreover, it's an irreversible process. So, hence always the entropy of the universe goes on increasing. It is an ever increasing, it's continuously increasing. So this is the statement given by the second law. Now we come to the second law of thermodynamics. There are some other statement also, like the statement given by Planck. Now what does Planck say about it? It is impossible to construct a machine operating in cycles that will convert heat into work without producing any other changes in the surroundings. Can we produce a machine which will convert heat into work automatically without producing any effect elsewhere? No. Whenever heat is being converted into work or work, what you can say, we are getting some useful form of energy. Got it? Converting of heat into work is nothing but a useful form of energy. We can say that. Clear? So, there some heat is being lost into the surroundings because the machine has got some friction. Some energy will be utilized to overcome that particular friction. We can say that. So, it is not possible. Clear? That's a statement given by Planck. Again, I repeat. It is impossible to construct a machine operating in cycles that will convert heat into work without producing any other changes in the surroundings. It is not possible. Correct. Now, next is Clausius or Kelvin's statement of the second law is that it is impossible to construct a heat engine. It is similar only, just a little bit of difference in words, which can continuously abstract heat from a single body and convert the whole of it to work without leaving changes in the working system. As I said, it is almost the same, only the little bit the words are different. That is, again I repeat, it is impossible to construct a heat engine which will continuously abstract heat from a single body and convert the whole of it to work without leaving changes in the working system. We can say that. That is also not possible. Now, the third definition is that, which is not given by any particular scientist, we can say that. So, we can say it's the third definition. So, all spontaneous process or naturally occurring process are thermodynamically irreversible in nature. Already I have discussed with you. Got it? Now, the next one is the fourth definition. Without the help of an external agency, a spontaneous process cannot be reversed. That is, heat cannot flow from cold body to a hot body. Heat always flows from hot body to the cold body only. That is a spontaneous process. So without the help of external agency, you cannot reverse the flow of heat from cold to hot. The natural phenomena is heat always flows from hot body to cold body. That is a spontaneous process. If you want to reverse it, then you need an external source to reverse it. Alright, so hence it says, without the help of an external agency, a spontaneous process cannot be reversed without the help of an external agency. As I said, it's not possible that if you want that the heat should flow from cold to hot, it's not possible. Alright, if you want, then you have to do something. Some external agency is required to do so. Alright, like water always flows from higher level to lower level. If you want from lower to higher it should flow, you have to use a pump, a motor, you have to use it. Like in your house you are using it to lift the water, isn't it? Clear? So that is you have to do. So there exists a function S called entropy, which is a state function. I have already said it. The entropy of the universe remains constant in a reversible process, but it increases in an irreversible process. Already we have studied. And that is the entropy of the universe always tends to increase. Now, based upon this, we can say that if we are talking about the machine which is used for the conversion of heat into work is called a heat engine. Now, from the machine, what we do? We calculate efficiency of the machine. Efficiency, which is nothing but given by the formula W by Q. Eta is equal to eta. Eta is efficiency, which is equal to W by Q. That is heat by, that is work by, but you can say heat, we can say that. Clear? So, the fraction of the heat absorbed by a machine that it can transform the work is called the efficiency of the machine. The fraction of the heat absorbed by the machine that it can convert it into work, that it can transform it into work is called as the efficiency of the machine. We can say that. Clear? So this is about the second law of thermodynamics, so to say, we can say. So now we have studied about the second law. Now, as I was saying you, we'll come to the next one. The next one, as I said, the next factor we'll see, where we will be seeing it about how to do the delta S surroundings, how to calculate. Now, coming to the next one is your free energy and Helmholtz energy. Now, what is free energy and Helmholtz energy? Now, first of all, we'll come to Helmholtz energy. Helmholtz. Alright, what I said? Helmholtz energy. Helmholtz. Helmholtz energy denoted the letter capital A, and capital A is equal to U minus Ts. Capital A is equal to U minus Ts. This is your Helmholtz free energy. We can say that. Similarly, we have also got Gibbs free energy. Gibbs free energy. This is more used widely. Gibbs free energy, which is denoted the letter G, and G is equal to H minus Ts. Now, this is a function of internal energy, this is a function of enthalpy. Gibbs free energy, we can say that. It's a function of enthalpy. Now, both are free energy. One is given by Helmholtz, another is given by Gibbs, we can say that. Now, next is both are state functions. Both are state functions. That means we are having an initial A1, which is equal to U1 minus TS1. Alright, clear? And A2 is equal to U2 minus TS2. So hence delta A we can calculate. Delta A is equal to del U minus T delta S. We can say that. Similarly, we can also calculate delta G. Delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. Here also we can calculate initial Gibbs free energy. G1 is equal to H1 minus TS1. And final Gibbs free energy G2 is equal to H2 minus TS2. When you will subtract it to calculate the change, then you will be getting this formula ultimately. Delta G is equal to del H minus T del S, and del A is equal to del U minus T del S. We can say that. This is your change in Helmholtz free energy, and this is your nothing but change in Gibbs free energy. We can say that. Alright. Now you might be thinking, what will you do with this? Let us derive something. Then you will come to know. Then you will come to know that what we are going to do with this. Now, the first one is, we'll take, as I said you, Helmholtz free energy, we'll take it. That is delta A. Delta A is equal to del U minus T delta S. Now, we have studied already, del S is equal to Q reversible by T. So, T cancel already. Alright. Now, next is, we got it, delta U is equal to minus Q reversible. Del U, from the first law we studied, Q plus W. Del U is equal to Q plus W minus Q reversible. So, this and this cancels. That is delta A is equal to W. But if the work is done by the system, then the work done is what? Negative. So W is equal to minus delta A. If the work is done by the system, mind it, if the work is done by the, if it is upon the system, positive. But if it is done by the system, it is negative. And generally, but in a reversible process, it is a maximum work done. Got it? In a reversible process, the work done in a reversible process is the maximum work done. We know that. It is the maximum work done. Already we have studied. So in case of reversible process, that is W reversible is equal to minus delta A. Got it? Clear? So this we get it from the Helmholtz free energy. That is work done by reversible process is equal to minus delta A. And first I have said it, the work done by the system. Got it? Clear? Which is nothing but minus delta A. We can say that. Clear? Now we will see the relationship between Gibbs free energy and Helmholtz free energy. That is delta G and delta A. What is the relationship? I think you understood this one. So we will see the relationship between delta G and delta A. Alright, delta G and delta A. Now we have studied already. Del G is equal to del H minus T del S. Del H minus T del S. Already we have studied. Now next is del G is equal to del H. Del H is what? Del U plus P del V. That also we know. Minus T del S, because del H is equal to del U plus B del V. Del H is equal to. Okay. So del U, what will I do? I'll just arrange it this one. Del U minus T del S plus P del V. So del U minus T del S is what? Delta A. We know that. Plus P delta V. So del G is equal to del A plus P del V. We can say that. This is for the relationship between Gibbs free energy and Helmholtz free energy. Now we know that del A is equal to minus W plus P delta V. We can say that. Now P del V is also work done. P del V is also work done. Now this is also work done. So work done minus work done by reversible process is what? The net work done by the system. We can say that. So delta G is equal to P del V minus, because see again I repeat, this is also work done. P del V is the work done. We have already studied. And this is also is the work done, you can see very clearly. So both the work done, if I do subtract it, then what will I get? I will get the net work done by the system. So del G is equal to nothing but the net work done by the system, or we can say W minus P del V. P del V minus W reversible is the net work done. We can say that. That also we can say P del V minus W reversible is also the net work done by the system. We can say that. Clear? Fine. Now next is, here we will see that what is the value of delta G for a system to be spontaneous. Alright, because ultimately we want to know the spontaneity of process. Na? Because my question remains the same from the beginning. That del H negative is not the only criteria. Del S positive is also not the only criteria. Why? Because when I say del S positive, we are not able to calculate the total entropy. We are able to calculate only the entropy of the system. We are not able to calculate the entropy of the surroundings. Alright, we are not able to calculate the entropy of the surroundings. Alright, when we include, now listen carefully, when we include that is delta G, then here delta G is equal to del H minus T del S. Here this is the absolute entropy where the entropy of the system and the surroundings is calculated, is being put into it. Alright, is being put into it. So based upon this, now listen carefully, based upon this, if del G is negative, the reaction is said to be spontaneous. Alright, here we get it. That suppose if the work is done by the system, now if this value is less and this value is more, then the answer will be negative. We can say that. So hence, again I repeat, that is if del G is negative, the reaction is said to be spontaneous. If the del G is positive, then the reaction is said to be non-spontaneous. When it will be positive? If this minus this will be positive. If this value is more and this value is less, then it will be, what is that? Non-spontaneous. And if del G is 0, then the reaction is said to be in equilibrium. Alright, if del G is negative, again I repeat, it is spontaneous. If del G is positive, it is said to be non-spontaneous, the reaction. Alright, means it is not feasible, we can say that. And if del G is equal to 0, the reaction is said to be equilibrium. That we come to know. Where, again I repeat, del S means here I am using the absolute entropy, that is entropy of the system and the surroundings. I have used it. So from the Gibbs free energy, we can say the spontaneity of a process, because we started from the spontaneity of process right from the beginning, where I said, again I repeat, del H negative is not the only criteria, del S positive is also not the only criteria, because when I say del S positive gives us the spontaneity of process, we are able to calculate the partial value of delta S. We are able to calculate only the delta S of the system, not the surroundings. But in case of Gibbs free energy, when we are using the delta S, we are using the absolute value of the delta S, that is entropy of the system plus surroundings. We are using it, and hence we are calculating the entropy of the, what you can say, the total entropy. We are calculating it, and from there we come to know that when we are using the total entropy, when we are using, that is delta X. So here in case of Gibbs free energy, you can see enthalpy is also used, entropy is also used, because this only cannot give the spontaneity of the process. This only cannot give the spontaneity of the process. If I combine them, then I get the spontaneity of the process, which I have already said you. Del H negative is, if del H value is negative, it is spontaneous. If it is positive, it is not spontaneous. And del H is 0, it is said to be equilibrium. Now, next is based upon this, how, if the gas is an ideal gas, then how can we calculate the entropy? You can write on the formula, del G is equal to 2.303 nRT log P1 by P2. We can say that. Log P2 by P1. Del G is equal to 2.303 nRT log P2 by P1. Or you can say del G is equal to minus 2.303 nRT log P1 by P2. If you are taking minus. Initially I said minus. So next is, or you can say 2.303 nRT log V1 by V2. If it is positive, 2.303 nRT log V1 by V2. If you say negative, then it will be minus 2.303 nRT log V2 by V1. Don't get confused. The formula which I am saying you. This is to calculate the delta G for an isothermal reversible process of an ideal gas. We can say that. Isothermal reversible process of an ideal gas. Now, the standard free energy change, how do we calculate? Standard free energy change is delta G naught. Alright, delta G naught, which is equal to nothing but entropy, that is initial Gibbs free, final Gibbs free energy minus initial Gibbs free energy. Alright, that will be giving you the standard entropy. Now, what is the relationship between, that is free energy change, standard free energy change, and equilibrium constant? Equilibrium constant we will be studying in the next chapter, that is chemical equilibrium and ionic equilibrium, and I will be teaching you. You will come to know about it. So the formula is del G naught is equal to minus RT ln K. Alright, K is the equilibrium constant. Ln is a natural log, we can say that. Alright, so if you want to convert this ln to log, from natural log to common log means log to the base 10. Natural log means log to the base E, where ln means log to the base E. So what is the formula then? It will be minus 2.303. That is, if the number of mole is 1, then it will be simply RT. If number of mole is not 1, then it will be nRT log K. Alright, if number of mole is 1, then instead of n, I'll put it as 1. So it will be minus 2.303 RT log K. Here log K means log base 10. It's understood. If nothing, the base is written, it's understood the base is 10. So if number of moles is not 1, then the formula will be minus 2.303 nRT log K. Again I repeat, K stands for equilibrium constant. What is equilibrium constant? You will study in the next chapter. Little bit, let me tell you. Equilibrium constant is nothing but the concentration of the product by concentration of the reactant. Our equilibrium reaction will be there. Total concentration of the product by total concentration of the reactant will give you the equilibrium constant. Alright, you will study in details in the next chapter. We can see that. Clear? So in this way, delta G or naught, I can say delta G naught is equal to, this is nothing but standard Gibbs free energy is minus RT ln K. Ln to log, how will I do? I will multiply 2.303 when you want to convert ln to log. So minus 2.303 nRT log base 10 K. You will say that here n is not there. Okay, I will put here n, no problem. I can put here n, but if n is equal to 1, no need to put. Clear? Now, what is the relationship between standard Gibbs energy and what you can say the electrical work done in a cell battery? Got it? So that is nothing but delta G naught is equal to minus NFE naught. delta G naught is equal to minus NF E naught cell. This we'll study in class 12 in details. NF E naught cell. N is the number of moles, F is the Faraday, which is 96500 coulomb. E naught cell is equal to nothing but E naught cathode minus E naught anode. E naught is the what? The standard EMF of the cell. If I write a delta G, then it will be del G is equal to minus NF E cell. E cell. The difference between E naught and E cell is that E naught cell is the standard EMF for the cell. Now standard means what? When the EMF of the cell is measured at 298 Kelvin and under 1 atm pressure, that is said to be a standard. And when the EMF of the cell is measured under any condition, that is called as the EMF of the cell, is known as E cell. What? That's the difference. There is no difference in the formula. Formula is the same. E cell is equal to E cathode minus E anode. E naught cell is equal to E naught cathode minus E naught anode. Both are same. So delta G is equal to minus NF E cell, where N stands for number of moles, F is the Faraday. The value of 1 Faraday is 96500 coulomb. We can say that. And E cell is, how do we calculate? E cathode minus E anode. The value will be given to you, cathode and anode. So in this way, this we come to know from the, what you can say, Gibbs free energy we come to know. Now coming to the last part, the third law of thermodynamics, it states that according to the third law of thermodynamics, the entropy of a perfectly crystalline substance at the absolute zero is taken as zero. The entropy of a perfectly crystalline substance at absolute zero is taken to be as zero. A perfectly crystalline substance is very difficult to get. If you are able to get it, then entropy of that particular substance is taken to be as zero, because there is no randomness. All the crystals are of the same type. So how there will be randomness or disorderliness? We can say that. Clear? So the law was given by Nernst. As the temperature is raised, the entropy of the pure substance increases. Alright, so this definition is valid perfectly for crystalline solid, which is 100% crystalline solid. But in nature, you know that it is very difficult to get 100% crystalline solid. So in nature, practically, this third law is not applicable. Alright, so third law is applicable under what you can say, what conditions I can say that? Under that is hypothetical conditions, we can say. Clear? That is, if a perfectly crystalline substance is there, then the entropy of the perfect crystalline substance is taken to be as zero, because there is no randomness, there is no disorderliness, only orderliness is there. For example, a perfectly crystalline sodium chloride is there. Alright, so it's not possible to get a perfect crystalline sodium chloride. Alright, because sodium chloride you'll study in higher classes, it is octahedral in nature. The shape is octahedral. It's not possible to get us exactly octahedral molecule, we can say that. It's not possible to get. Clear? So hence, as it is not possible, so entropy is also not zero. But if it is possible, then the entropy of that crystalline substance is taken to be as zero, because there is no randomness, there is no disorderliness will be present in that particular system. Because crystalline solids have only vibratory motion of particles, we can say that, about their equilibrium positions in lattice. Lattice means the crystal lattice. Whereas liquids and gases have translational, rotational, vibrational, so many other motions are there. But in crystalline solids, only one motion is vibratory motion. And if that is the, what you can say, perfectly crystalline, means no gap is there in between. As there is no gap, so hence the molecules will not collide with one another. So they will be at rest, we can say that. So the change in entropy will be zero, so to say. So this is about the third law. So every substance has a finite value of positive entropy, but at the absolute zero of temperature, the entropy may become zero, we can say that, for a perfectly crystalline solid, and it becomes zero in perfectly crystalline solid, as I said you. So, but again I repeat, the perfectly crystalline solid in nature is very difficult to get actually.